Being the starting quarterback at USC means you're one of the team leaders. Comes with a job description. Big Ten Media Day is coming up in a few weeks. We're going to talk about that next.
You are Locked On USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Culkin, and thank you. Thank you again for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network your first listen every single day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you want to download this podcast, you can pick your platform. This show is always free, no matter where you listen and wherever you watch it, whenever you watch it on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers, you can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. After Miller Moss's first 3 games as USC's starting quarterback, Coach Riley said the following. Quote, "There's no question Moss is really smart." He was talking to Keyshawn Johnson on the All Facts No Breaks radio show podcast. He said he's one of the smartest ones and maybe the smartest quarterback that I've ever had, which is saying something, end quote. For what it's worth, Miller Moss was one of USC's team representatives at Big Ten Media Day last season. Well, as I mentioned in the introduction of the show, we got about 3 weeks before Big Ten Media Day. Right? Today is July 1st. Can you believe it? We're 60 days away, 6-0, from USC kicking off against Missouri State. But we're just 3 weeks away from Big Ten Media Days kicking off in Las Vegas. The Big Ten released the names of the 54 guys who will be there representing their schools. 18 programs, 3 players per school. Do the math, 54. Anyways, USC is sending Elijah Paige, Kamari Ramsey, and Makai Lemon. Those are 3 outstanding choices. Would love to have all 3 of those guys there. Can't wait to talk to them. And all 3 of those guys are probably anticipating, and I know the fans are anticipating it, having huge seasons. You know, they're planning to be the guys who show up weekly for USC. In fact, this might be the last season for all 3 of them in college. All 3 are going to be draft eligible. So yeah, Coach Riley is electing not to bring his starting quarterback, Jayden Maiava. Are you concerned? Is this a nothing burger? Nothing at all? Or curious at least, maybe, at the very least? For me, I think it says something. Not sure exactly what, but if you're trying to read the tea leaves and, follow the breadcrumbs, see where this is going, Coach Riley has always talked about in the past, and on more than one occasion, that his quarterback is a team leader, team captain. It's got to be one of those guys. He's always emphasized that a quarterback's leadership is crucial, especially during those challenging times during the season, whether it's practice, during a game, whatever. And it's like I said, it's part of the job description. Coach Riley believes that facing adversity is, part of the journey for any quarterback, and the best ones persevere through those tough stretches. One other thing that Coach Riley always highlights is the importance of a quarterback's vocal leadership on and off the field. And that's the part we need to focus, off the field. Lincoln has said repeatedly that being a leader is synonymous with the quarterback position. So why isn't Jayden Maiava going to Big Ten Media Days? Look, I get it. Some folks just are not comfortable behind the microphone with a scrum of people in front of you asking you questions, especially Big Ten Media Day. You don't have the familiarity of your local guys like myself, credential press guys who go to practice, go to the games. A lot of the people he's going to see are, national guys from across the country. So I get it. Jayden isn't one of the more vociferous guys on the roster. But again, that's part of the job description when you play quarterback at USC. And especially if you're QB1 at USC, you got to be able to stand there, listen to the questions, answer the questions, and give some thoughtful commentary behind it. But when you listen to Jaden, go back to his interviews after practice, after the games last year. He's a man of few words. And that's not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. But because even Jaden has said that, it's something he's working on right now, trying to be more vocal, showing those leadership traits. It's a process. But if you think back and, when we were asking him questions after practice or after the games, again, very short answers, not a lot of substance behind it. Gotten a little bit better this past spring. So for me, again, this is kind of a curious move on Riley's part. Maybe from the cynical side of things, let's look at it from this. Maybe it gives Coach Riley a little bit of latitude, just in case he has to make a quarterback change sooner in the season. Remember last year? Didn't happen until the 10th game. I remember last year during the week leading up to the Rutgers game. I mean, Coach Riley was as animated as I have ever seen him after practice. That was a few days after USC lost on the road to Maryland. Coach Riley dropped one of those no bleep type of comments. Starts with an S, ends in a T. When he was asked about, does the team need to get better? It was like, no bleep. Look, what I remember from that game against Maryland, outside of the loss, was Miller had to throw the ball 50 times in that game. It was after that game when the questions started to come up. Is Miller still the starter? And the reason is, the reason why I'm bringing that up now is because Coach Riley really focuses on instilling confidence in his quarterbacks. He wants them to be able to perform at their best, especially when things aren't going well. When USC lost to Maryland, things weren't going well. So yes, he's still our starter. USC came out the following weekend, beat Rutgers on a Friday night at the Coliseum, 42-20. But not bringing Jaden Mayaba to Las Vegas for the media days, I don't know. I don't think that really instills confidence. Not in my book. You're giving him an out. And again, I don't know the circumstances. So I'm just kind of assuming, speculating. Coach Riley's looking for guys who are maybe more comfortable talking with the media. Elijah Paige, Kamari Ramsey. Makai Lemon was kind of a surprise. I got to be honest. Very confident. Kind of straddles that line of confidence and arrogance. I think that's why I like him so much. I have a similar personality. But no quarterback. First time in a long time that I can remember that happening. The quarterback of your team is usually the face of the program, especially at a place like USC. So I don't know the circumstances. For all I know, maybe there's some classes or a finals. I don't know. But for whatever reason, Jaden is not going to be at Big Ten Media Day. Not a big deal. Or is it? Or is it just something you're curious about? I'm curious about it. As far as I'm concerned, look, you have to face your challenges. Face those weaknesses head on. And Jaden has talked about it in the past. It's something he's working on. It might be a great place to do it. Again, not a huge deal. I don't want anybody watching this segment of the show going, oh, we got problems at quarterback. Mark's making a big thing out of this. No, I'm raising the issue because the way Lincoln Riley likes to structure his team with leaders, it always starts at the quarterback position with him. So for me, it's curious that his starting quarterback is not going to Big Ten Media Day. There's something else I found that I kind of found curious before I wrap up this segment. And I actually give Nico Iamaleava some credit. Yes, UCLA's quarterback. The guy who should be starting for UCLA this year. He's going to be there. He's going to be, I guess, thrown to the fire, answering the questions. What happened? Look, I guess it's better to get it out of the way in July instead of during the season. But yeah, let's give the young man a little bit of credit. You're going to have to answer. The questions are going to come up. What happened? Why? So I'm looking forward to seeing what he has to say. USC, UCLA on the same day, July 24th. I cannot wait to talk to Elijah and Makai and Kamari. Looking forward to it, big time. I'm also looking forward to Coach Riley's reasoning for it. Because the question's going to come up. So USC's Media Day, July 24th. Again, start everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, become an everydayer. If you're watching on YouTube, click that subscribe button, smash that thumbs up, click that bell notification so you don't miss an episode. By the way, send in your questions and comments. I'm going to see if I can maybe pull one or two, some questions you want me to ask at Big Ten Media Day. Can't promise it'll happen, but I'll see what I can do. But again, hit me up in the comments section on YouTube. Send me a private message there over on X, formerly known as Twitter. Wherever you can reach me. Facebook, wearesc.com. I'm all over the place. I will be back with another segment coming up, but we got to do this first. Summer sports, full swing. You're a baseball fan? Go Dodgers. Look, whether you're all about baseball, maybe you like to golf on the green. Maybe you're into soccer action. You know what? FanDuel has you covered. It's the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action, right? So then why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's easy to use, fast to pay out. That's one of the great things about FanDuel. You win, they pay you like that. They, in fact, they have these things called same game parlays. So I don't know, maybe you're looking to make some extra dough. FanDuel's going to make that happen for you. It's going to make you feel like you're part of the action. If you want to be new to FanDuel, perfect time. New customers, you can bet $5 and you're going to get $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. Wow, pretty easy, right? Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. What has been the biggest recruiting win for USC to date? Today's July 1st. Remember? Don't worry, it's April. Don't worry, it's May. The class is going to fall apart. Well, it's June. It'll happen. Watch. It happened last year. Well, June has come and gone. We're in July. This class isn't going to fall apart, folks. And for all of you fans of other programs like at Oregon, UCLA, Notre Dame, all of you Lincoln Riley haters who are still clinging on there in Oklahoma, this class isn't falling apart. Sorry to burst your bubble, ruin your day. Maybe I'm not, but you need to change your mindset. Find a new excuse, another reason why the class will fall apart. It ain't happening. But USC has a handful of big, huge recruiting wins. I'm going to give you, I think, 4 or 5. You tell me which one's the biggest. I'm going to start with the flip. Tomuhini Tapui. Okay. Keeping that defensive tackle home cannot be emphasized enough. It is a huge, huge deal. USC keeping the best defensive tackle on the West Coast and from modern day, nonetheless, keeping him home to play for USC, this is a huge shift. This is a recruiting battle that USC has lost way too many times over the last 5 years. Well, that was the start of big things to happen for USC with their 2026 recruiting class. Once Tom flipped, the dominoes just started falling. So you got to have this guy in this conversation. Speaking of the dominoes, one of those dominoes that started to fall, how about getting Kenai Pepe to come back home, right? One of the top offensive tackles in the country who's been at IMG Academy, still at IMG Academy. Excuse me. Well, he's coming home. He's originally from Southern California. He wants to be part of that process, part of that group that helps USC turn the corner, become relevant again on the national stage when it comes to competing for a championship. USC is always relevant on the national stage. Now it's about talking about them in a positive light, not a what's happened to USC type of, discussion. Again, this is another recruiting battle that has seen USC end up as the bridesmaid more than the bride. So this is a huge, big recruiting win for Zach Hansen. Massive. Here's another one. What about Luke Wafel? This was a recent commitment. When he committed over a week ago, that was literally a tug of war for his services. One day he's, solid. He's committed to USC. The next morning, he's now flipped to Ohio State. One day later, he's coming to USC. It was that type of recruiting battle. USC battled out and beat Ohio State. They battled with Penn State. Remember, Luke's older brother transferred from Michigan to the Nittany Lions. So that was a family affair. In Ohio State, usually when they want a defensive lineman, they get a defensive lineman. They churn him out. They bring him in, they develop him, they put them in the NFL. Well, USC is known for doing that too. They're going to start doing it again. Luke Wafel is when USC beat out Ohio State and Penn State for his services, humongous national eye opener. It's the same type of commitment that USC can stack on top of Jakeem Stewart, who was part of the 2025 class. So again, pretty significant. USC can say, look, we can keep the guys on the West Coast, the guys in our backyard home. That's not a problem. But now our tentacles are reaching. We can go get a guy out of Louisiana. We can go get a guy out of New Jersey. So I would definitely say Luke makes the top 3 biggest recruiting wins for sure. I think the one that might be the leader in the clubhouse, though, has to be Mark Bowman. USC kept another modern-day stud at home, and they left the ring. If this was a battle royale, they left the ring with their arms raised high. They were holding the belt. Seriously. They beat out Texas and Georgia for his commitment. Okay, Georgia uses their tight end. Remember Ross Bowers? Well, Mark Bowman is the next coming. Texas, same thing. They like to use their tight ends. USC hasn't shown that recently. So to get him to stay home, big time. Big time. And forget that he's the number 1 tight end in the country. Forget that. That's great. He's the 12th best player in the country, regardless of his position. That's how big of a recruitment, how big of a commitment that is for USC. And then, of course, we have Talanoa Ely, the linebacker that USC had. He's the type of linebacker that USC has been missing out on, it seems, forever. It's one thing to lose a recruiting battle to Notre Dame, okay? Remember, the Fighting Irish, they went out for Kingston Viliamuasa. Last year, Madden Faramo. Before those two guys, you had Junior Tuihalamaka from Bishop Alemany. All those guys went to Notre Dame. USC could not lose Talanoa Ely to anybody. At one point, USC wasn't even involved. USC wasn't even in the picture. And then at the end, it was USC versus UCLA. No way in hell USC can lose Talanoa Ely to the Bruins. And they didn't, thankfully. So he is definitely in that group of massive, huge win. Game changer. And he's going to be so good. There's a reason why USC wanted him so badly. Why everybody else did. Couple other names I'll throw in there. So you got Elbert Hill, cornerback from Ohio. Again, another massive get for USC. Huge. You got the running back from the state of Ohio, Sean Alston. It's a pretty big recruiting win. You go into the state of Ohio, you take the number one cornerback in the country, and then you also take the running back from the state of Ohio. You're doing something right. Those are huge wins. But you got, listeners, viewers, you got to tell me which one of these guys is the biggest. I'm going to give you my top three. And again, this is very subjective. Ask me again next week, and I might change the order. But I got Mark Bowman, Tom Tapui, Talanoa Ely. And I'll tell you, again, the difference between the three, from 1 to 3, razor thin. I'd hate to survive on the difference. So again, let me know. Hit me up in the comments section. Was there a bigger recruiting win for USC? And maybe you have your own reason for it. Does Jonas Williams fit into the conversation? The quarterback? Another flip? Why not? What about Samote Katoana, the defensive end, rush edge from Santa Margarita? Pretty big win for USC. Been a few of them. Hit me up. Let me know. I got one more segment to go in the show, and I think we're going to stick around. You're going to enjoy this one. So it's my Monday mailbag on Tuesday. I forgot to do it yesterday. I'm sorry. I'm recording this on a Monday, though, for what it's worth. So I guess technically it's still a Monday mailbag, even though you're watching or listening on Tuesday. First one comes from viewer Mark Stanley. Great name, Mark. Anyways, he has a question about USC's baseball team. It's like, Mark, what is happening with the baseball team? Just as we get good, some of our best players transfer out. It's this. It really comes down to this. It's this simple. It's not that they don't like the USC's program or Coach Stankiewicz. It has nothing to do with that. It's all about revenue sharing and NIL. NIL and revenue sharing when it comes to baseball is way better in the SEC conference. Look, USC fans, you're partially responsible for this. But those schools in the SEC, they actually sell out their stadiums. It's true. They support their baseball programs. Their baseball teams actually generate revenue. USC has a lot of advantages when it comes to football NIL, basketball NIL. But college baseball players, they don't sell products. They just don't. And, they're not going to get any type of NIL deal that's going to help them, earn a really nice piece of the pie. Meanwhile, you can go to Mississippi State, Florida, not Florida State, Vanderbilt. Pick an SEC school, Texas A&M, Oklahoma. Those schools, the majority of the schools in the SEC that have LSU, oh my God, I can't believe I left them out. Those schools generate income from their baseball program. So that's why, Mark. That's why they're leaving. Now, with that said, I believe USC just got 4 pitchers via the transfer portal. So we'll see how it works out. I want to go back to last Friday's show, my Friday rant, which really wasn't a Friday rant. A lot of the show's everydayers who listened to that show last Friday, they caught the Friday rant segment, and again, it wasn't a Friday rant. I kind of threw a change up at everyone and told a story about a particular Trojan fan, his son Michael, and their relationship with former USC quarterback Cody Kessler. I was trying to show everybody how much character and how much integrity matters. Cody has a ton of that. So I encourage anyone who missed last week's Friday rant episode, third segment of the show, go back, check it out. And then when you're doing that, make sure you got some tissues nearby because it's going to tug at your heart. Anyways, a few of you who watched or listened to that show, you reached out and asked, how can I buy the book? Well, here's how you do it. It's called My Life Will Go On. The author, Edward Betancourt Jr. So go check it out. You can, there's I'm trying to remember the name of it. Book Bay. Anyways, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, there's multiple ways you can purchase this book. I'll see if I can find you a more cost-effective way, but you can find it at Barnes and Noble or on Amazon. Go do it. Help a Trojan out. Enrich your life. Trust me, you're going to want to do this. On yesterday's episode of Locked On USC, I talked about lessons learned, and if the team and Coach Riley learned from 2024, if they learn from those mistakes, how it's going to have a huge, significant impact on this season in a positive way. One person, Brett, sent me the following message on X. It says, hey, Mark, it's Brett. I want to tell you that I listened to your first segment of your show this morning when I was going to practice on my golf game. Those 3 games were definitely frustrating for sure. If the team were just to score at least 30 points on offense against Michigan, Minnesota, Maryland, even Washington, USC is 10-2 and going to the playoffs. You're right, I agree. I said it all last season. And I'm driving that train again in 2025. That was, for me, the most frustrating thing to watch. Coach Riley finally had a defense he can lean into. A defense that was only giving up, on average, 24 points per game. Footnote, you take away all those pick sixes that USC's quarterbacks threw, they are actually only giving up 21 points per game. Go back through Lincoln Riley's history. Find any year if he only was where they scored 30 points per game or less. That was USC last year. He had a defense. If they're scoring on average, they're 38 points, whatever Coach Riley's offenses typically put up. Forget 10-2. They're undefeated. So yes, you're right, Brett. We agree. By the way, last Friday's show from start to finish was I think one of this offseason's best shows. We talked about Miller Moss, how he's going to be Louisville's quarterback 1 this season. He was USC's quarterback 1 in 2024 till he wasn't. Anyways, he took the lion's share of the blame for USC's offense's inconsistency last year. And I brought it up because Reese Davis, ESPN, college football commentator, analyst, talk show host, whatever. Reese feels that Miller is going to be one of the top 5 returning quarterbacks in college football in 2025. A lot of you, disagree with his opinion. That's fine. No big deal. That's what it's all about. People have opinions. You don't have to agree with everybody. Anyways, the majority of the feedback, though, felt that Miller was playing behind a poor offensive line. So people listened to Reese's rationale, listened to the show, at the way I was, bringing the information. And it was like, you know what, Mark? Yeah, but don't forget, Miller was playing behind a porous offensive line. And that's what led to his eventual benching. I don't disagree. LB in SoCal summed it up this way after he listened. Totally agree with ESPN. Miller was a victim of a crappy O-line. Anyone who watched could see how many times he was getting hit in every game. And of course, the interceptions happened at the end of games where he was beat up at the end. LB in SoCal is making a really good point. This is true. I doubt Lincoln wanted to change, and I actually underlined this next sentence here, but he folded under the pressure of every internet podcaster and disgruntled fan. It's always easier to get rid of one person, that is the coach or the quarterback, but then to put the blame on the team as a whole. Sadly, Miller, was thrown under the bus. Instead of putting the blame where it belonged, Mailbag doesn't come close to having the potential as Miller had. All right. I think I agree with the general tenor of what LB and SoCal was saying there. However, I do disagree with the comment about coach folding under the pressure, and not everyone in the media. Because look, not everyone in the media was calling for Miller to be benched. If Coach Riley felt the need to do something to spark the team, if he felt any pressure, it wasn't coming from the media, podcast, or the fans. It came from the locker room. Remember, I mentioned in the first segment, Coach was hearing the catcalls after USC lost at Maryland. That's when everything started to kind of change. And that's when the question's starting to come up. Hey, is Miller still your starting quarterback? When he came out, led USC to a 42-20 win. But anyways, that's not the only. Again, I'm bringing it up because viewer mailbag. You guys, a lot of you commented on that segment where I was talking about what Reese Davis had to say about Miller Moss and the USC quarterback situation. So there you go. And there's another episode, Locked On USC, in the books again. Wow, went by fast. I'll be back again tomorrow. Until then, don't forget, when you're done making Locked On USC, your first listen, your first watch every day, don't forget to check out the portal, Brian Smith. He'll get you caught up with anything that's going on, any type of transactions in college football. And then when you're all done with the Locked On Network, get on over there to wearesc.com. Ton of good information. We're going to have all the latest. By the way, if you haven't heard, wearesc.com on 3, they merged with Rivals. A whole bunch of new stuff going on. So go check it out. Again, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.